Have you ever noticed how bad society is at logic? We're taught from a young age that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, or opinions can't be wrong, it's just an opinion. But I'm here to say that's a lie, bro. Some opinions are just factually and morally incorrect, and I've always thought this, but let me explain. To understand why I'm saying this, right? How can opinions be wrong? First, we have to look at how human actions actually interact with reality. Because I look at this through a mix of philosophy and physics, kind of, right? I just call it, I'll just call it the baseline theory, right? Because we're gonna go off baseline. Think of reality as having a neutral, natural trajectory. And that's where I get the name like baseline. We're just gonna call it the baseline or like zeroed out, right? So reality has a just zero baseline. This is what I mean. If you're laying in your bed or just sitting at your desk, right, and no outside forces act upon you, then you will just exist. Your belongings, they stay yours. Your body's gonna stay safe. This is just the normal default state of the universe. This is baseline, this is zero. You're laying there, you're sitting there. That's all you're doing. Because this state requires absolutely zero interference to exist, so it is inherently neutral. Now, a side effect of that is it cannot be judged. I don't believe you can walk up to someone minding their own business and say, you're doing that wrong. What you're doing is wrong. You're sitting there, you shouldn't be doing that. That's morally wrong to sit there. Listen, I know this may be confusing, but stick with me, okay? It's just the way my brain processes these things. You guys stick with me, okay? Because listen, let's say then another human enters that room and they commit an action, right? We all know every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Therefore, every action changes the trajectory of reality or the trajectory of the world. It pulls it off of baseline, -1 or +1, it pulls it, okay? First, let's look at a harmless example. Okay, I wrote this down, right? A coworker walks in with donuts, let's say. So they have introduced an action into your space, into your reality. If you don't want a donut, you have no obligation to take one because they introduced an action which pulled reality off of baseline. But introducing donuts, giving donuts, that's a positive action. So let's say it's a +1. In my opinion, you're fully allowed to remain neutral if you want. You have no obligation to move your reality to that +1. Let's say it's like a chess piece on chessboard. You don't have to go to that positive square. You don't have to move up a square like a pawn, right? Your choice to stay at level 0 baseline cannot be judged though. Remember I said that? You cannot judge baseline. You cannot call someone rude because they say, oh, I don't want a donut. It's just you choosing not to participate in their reality disruption, but their action can be judged. Now, in this scenario, they're being nice. So you wouldn't really judge them and say you're an evil person, but they can be judged because they're the ones that brought an action into neutral and move the baseline off neutral, right? I'm saying your action, your inaction to stay neutral cannot be judged. Okay, I hope I didn't lose people there because it gets worse. This is something I don't understand, is the way society's logic just completely breaks down. Now, imagine you're sitting at your desk. Again, you're just sitting there, right? You're at neutral. Now, a different person walks in. They have a gun. They point the gun at your face. Now, they brought an action in, right? Pointing a gun in your face, that's an action. This is a negative action. They have forcefully dragged reality, dragged your world off neutral down to a negative. I mean, if bringing a donut's a negative or a +1, pointing a gun in your face like a -100, right? So they just brought your reality to a -100. They have introduced a massive violent disruption. Before they pull the trigger, you react. You slap the gun out of their hand. And because they have a weak wrist, the force of your defense sprains their wrist or breaks a bone. Believe it or not, there are real humans in this world that will actually say, technically, you assaulted them. You caused them harm. So you're just as bad and you need to be, prosecuted or persecuted via the justice system. And what I mean is like, you need to go to jail, you need to pay a fine, whatever. I am saying, and by the way, these people I'm talking about, like, because I know some of y'all are probably like, dude, no one would say that. Bro, go look at England right now. There are people who are getting their homes robbed at gunpoint. They tackle the armed gunman. They tackle him. The dude hits his head, has to go to the doctor for a concussion. The motherfucker that was getting robbed has to go to jail for assault, for tackling the guy. So this is real stuff. I'm not just making this up just for a YouTube video. I'm complaining about these real motherfuckers out there. What I'm saying is that logic, that is factually incorrect. I don't care if it's an opinion, it's a wrong opinion. Because listen, when you defend yourself, you're not initiating a new action, right? You aren't trying to start a fight. You are applying a counterforce for one single reason. You are trying to force reality back to the baseline. Your defense is a restorative act. You are trying to restore the baseline of reality, which is to get back to zero. Remember, trying to get back to zero or remaining at zero is an unjudgable action. You cannot judge that, I don't believe. So the injury to the attacker's wrist is not an independent act of violence by you. It's a direct byproduct of their initial disruption, their action. They chose to leave baseline by forcing you into a life or death situation. That means that they assume the risk of whatever happens during your attempt to get back to baseline, to get back to neutral. And this is a core truth that I think people miss. Attempting to move back to neutral is always acceptable and can never be judged. If you're just trying to get back to neutral. If you are standing somewhere and I grab you and start to take you away, I start to basically kidnap you, and you throw an elbow and knock me in my nose and break my whole nose and my shit's pouring out blood, and I let you go and you go stand right back to where you were. Let's say you're waiting on the train. You go stand right back to where you were. And the cops come and they say, "Hey, what's the deal, man? You busted his nose open." And you say, "Bro, I'm just trying to stand here and get on my train. This crazy motherfucker grabbed me and started moving me away. So yeah, I flailed my elbow, busted him in his shit, and I went back to stand where I was." If he would have never grabbed me, shit wouldn't have happened. I don't think you can have an opinion that the kidnapper was in the right. You cannot have an opinion and say, "Well, you shouldn't have kidnapped, but also we need to sue you for elbowing him." Because I'm saying you cannot judge a person for gravity pulling them down if they're pushed off a cliff. And with that same logic, you cannot judge a person for reaching for survival when their life is threatened. You can only judge the entity that disrupted the peace in the first place and pulled reality off baseline. So the next time you see a story or someone tries to tell you that the victim went too far, or that every opinion on human behavior is equally valid, remind them of the physics of reality, that the baseline is neutral, that me living my life or you living your life is just neutral. Anyone who tries to impede on that loses all rights as long as the person is just trying to get back to neutral. Let me just say as a caveat real quick, or as a short explanation, because I know some idiot in the comments is going to say this. I'm talking about getting back to neutral. What does that not mean? That does not mean if you're sitting at a desk in school, someone comes up to you and pokes you on the shoulder. That does not mean that you get to go home and bring a shotgun and shoot them in the chest, right? That's not going to neutral. That has nothing to do with you sitting at the desk being unpoked, right? I am merely talking about doing an action to immediately return yourself back to what you were doing. If you're sleeping and a burglar breaks in your house to do something, you were sleeping in the bed. You need to remove them out of the house or remove the threat away from you so you can go back to what you were doing, which is sleeping. Now, if there's a burglar with a gun in the house, that may mean you gotta blast this motherfucker's spinal column out his back with a shotgun. So be it. But I am not calling for escalating violence. That's not what I'm trying to say. Before anyone tries to, jump through hoops and make me sound like a bad guy in the comments. All I'm saying is the baseline is neutral, and defending baseline is never a crime.